It's my great privilege to introduce to you Steve Hutton. Steve was a member of my church in Jackson, Mississippi. When I went there, he's one of the first guys I met for several reasons. First of all, the house that we moved into, Steve's father-in-law, Carol, built that house. In fact, Steve's wife, Joni, why don't you raise your hand right over here? Joni is with us, and so we met them. Before we moved to the home, he came and told me that, hey, you know, Carol built that house, and we lived there, and we love the house, but I have to admit, our lives have never been the same since we lived in the house that Steve lived in. It's just kind of creepy, really, in some ways. But Steve was a guy who, he was a pastor's friend. Many times, Steve did things behind the scenes quietly that ministered to me, to my family. And I won't go into detail about that, but it was just a great encouragement to me as a pastor. And since I left, he's been that to me in the 7 years that we've been gone now. And Steve has been an agent for Steve Farrar. He's currently doing that. Steve speaks all over the country in men's events. He's also an agent for Charles Billingsley, who leads worship at Thomas Road Baptist Church there in Lynchburg, Virginia. Some of you may know of Charles, and where my students, my kids attend school and have been influenced by Charles in many ways. And Steve's been a golf pro for several years. He did that. And so he has a varied experience of life to bring him to really his story that he's going to share this morning. And it's going to be life-changing for some who are in the service today, I believe. And I had the privilege of reading his book before it went to press. I was on sabbatical, and he said, hey, I'm going to send this to you, and will you read it? He FedExed it overnight, and I couldn't put it down. The moment I started reading, and immediately called him back. And just a very compelling story that you need to hear. And so I want you to welcome Steve and Joni Hutton. Let's welcome them this morning.
Thanks, Pastor. Thank you so much. Every time I hear somebody go through my resume, it sounds like a guy who can't keep a job to me. Thank you for letting me be here today. 1968 to 1974, I was in a church as a small child called Linwood Baptist Church in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. My dad was a professor at SEMO, and then we moved on to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. But my whole life, I want to tell you, I have always thought of myself as kind of this quick-witted guy, you know, that comes back, you know, instant jabs, back and forth. And I just have always thought my entire life that I could go toe-to-toe with anybody. Just put them in front of me, I can go toe-to-toe with anybody. Quick wit, back and forth. Until I met your pastor's wife. Then I realized there was an adversary even greater than I. As a matter of fact, one of the first memories I have is of Miss Karen having lunch with Charles Billingsley of Thomas Road Baptist Church. And Charles is a quick-witted guy as well. And Charles was trying to kind of needle Karen just a little bit, and he said something along the lines of, oh, I love singing in churches. I love all the Baptist churches. He said, but I really like the Mormon church better than any other church of all. They just seem to really be close to the Lord. And he was just kind of needling a little bit. And Karen said, oh, Charles, I agree. I love the Mormon church. My first husband was Mormon. Anyway, I don't want to go toe-to-toe with Karen any longer. Here's what I know this morning. I know for a fact that in a room this size, with this many people, that several of you woke up possibly with a monthly mortgage that's a little more than your household budget should allow. You possibly got dressed in this beautiful house and went out and got into a car that you're upside down in, or that the payments are more than your budget should allow. You drove through some beautiful neighborhoods to come to this gorgeous campus, a church that you attend but you haven't been able to give to the way that you've wanted to. And you came to hear a message that, if we were honest, not all of you would say that you even 100% believe. Many of you woke up this morning and you were in pain. There's pain and there's suffering of some type in your life. And maybe it is your checkbook, or maybe it's unemployment, or maybe it's underemployment. So many people have had to change careers and they just haven't been able to enjoy the same livelihood that they did in the past. Maybe you woke up this morning next to a spouse that has become unloving, distant. Maybe you woke up and your spouse was no longer next to you this morning, having abandoned the situation. Maybe you and your spouse woke up 2 rooms down from an empty nursery because God has not provided the child that you have so earnestly prayed for. Maybe you just spent the holiday season over Christmas for the first time without a loved one due to death. Or maybe you have a wayward family member. Maybe it's your brother or your sister or aunt or uncle, or maybe you're like my wife and I, and it's your child. Regardless of what kind of pain it is that you are experiencing, I would venture a guess that you may have said something like this: how could a loving God allow this to happen? How could a God who was supposed to care for me, take care of me, allow this type of pain in my life? I'm trying to do the right thing. We've put money aside. We go to church. We're just seeing it all crumble. My wife and I go to Haiti. Been several times. Haiti is the 3rd poorest country in the world, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It was devastated by an earthquake several years ago, and we've gone with some groups down there, and we've done what we could to help rebuild some schools and churches and minister in what way that we can. And whenever we come back home with that group, we always get back together after about a week or 2, and we kind of debrief the trip, share testimonies, how God worked in our life, what we saw while we were down there. And inevitably, somebody is going to say something like, I'm just amazed at how blessed we are. Why do we get to live here in all the riches that we have, and why do they live there? I feel so blessed to be where we are. An interesting thing, I heard about a young Haitian man who came to the United States for 6 months, and he interned at a church, learned what he could, and he was going to take what he learned back to Haiti. And when he went back, he did the same thing. He debriefed with his family and with his church. And a very similar statement or question was made. They said to him, "Didn't you want to stay? Didn't you want to stay where everything was easier?" And here's what he said to them. He said, "In America, people believe in God. But I would rather live in Haiti, where people depend on God." I would submit to you this morning that there is no other feeling, there is no other emotion stronger than pain and suffering that is going to do one of 2 things. It is either going to drive you closer to God, or it's going to drive you away from God. You've heard stories of devastating pain and devastating loss in people's lives, and you have seen them react in one of 2 ways. Some of them grew closer to God through the experience, and some of them turned away. C.S. Lewis said it like this: "Suffering plants the flag of truth within the fortress of our rebel soul." He also said this: "God whispers to us in our pleasures. He speaks normally in our conscience, but God shouts to us in our pain." I had a friend even say it better. He had gone through a devastating loss, family and finances, and he said, "You know, I've always heard Jesus is all you need, Jesus is all you need. But I never fully understood that Jesus was all you need until Jesus was all I had." I'm going to read out of Psalms 34 if you want to turn there. And I would say this to you: this book is full of examples of pain and suffering and how people of God responded. The Old Testament is completely filled with pain and suffering, and the New Testament starts right off in Matthew 5:5. Rain falls on the just and the unjust. Bad things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. Rain falls on the just and the unjust. But Psalm 34 is written by David, and it's a very interesting story. If you want to do some homework, if you'll make a note of this, go home and read 1 Samuel 9 through 12. 1 Samuel chapters 9 through 12. That's the story that David was living when he wrote Psalm 34. He was in a time of pain and suffering. Saul was trying to kill David, and so David fled, and then the people that he fled to, they were trying to kill David, and he fled again, and David had a choice to make. I am either going to draw closer to God, or I am going to turn my back on God. And he sat down and he penned Psalms 34. Let's read that together. It says, I will extol. Now, extol means bless. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise will be on my lips. My soul will boast in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. Now, this is right after a horrible time of pain and suffering. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all of his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Fear the Lord, you his saints, for those who fear him lack nothing. The lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the memory of them from the earth. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all of their troubles. And then listen to this, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those that are crushed in spirit. A righteous man may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. He protects them, all his bones, not one of them will be broken. Evil will slay the wicked, the foes of the righteous will be condemned. The Lord redeems his servants, no one will be condemned who takes refuge in him. Joni and I are blessed to be parents of two fantastic boys. That is Michael on your far right. Michael is our youngest. And ever since birth, Michael has been all things military and all things law enforcement. That's just all he would talk about as a kid growing up. He either wanted to be in the military or he wanted to be in law enforcement. He was in the Civil Air Patrol when he was in high school, which is the auxiliary of the United States Air Force. He was in ROTC in his high school. He went to a National Flight Academy at age 16. He solo piloted an airplane at age 16. He is now one of the detention officers at the Madison County Sheriff's Office. He works in the jail, and he actually put his resignation in earlier this week because he's about to be a police officer with the Madison Police Department, but he's been a detention officer in the jail for the last year or two. And let me just tell you, that dude looks stinking good in uniform. Done? As a matter of fact, if there's any 20-year-old ladies in the audience, it's Michael Hutton on Facebook. You can feel free, just pull out. You can use your phone right now during the service. It's not going to bother me at all. Michael Hutton, Facebook. You might just want to drop him a note there. Ben is our oldest son. He is 24 years old, and Ben, fantastic kid. Just one of those kids you never had to help with homework and made good grades, and good-looking kid, vivacious, smart, fantastic athlete, extremely fast. And when I say that this kid was fast, can I tell you? This kid was fast.
Murray as Ben Hutton and Arlington Wade deep to receive. Roberts plants his left foot and kicks with his right. He sends it down the middle. Hutton takes it to about the 8, and he's heading straight up the middle. He breaks to the right side a little bit. He's got some room. He's going down the right sideline, and he's got one man to beat. Ben Hutton's going to go all the way for a 92-yard touchdown return. I don't know if he got touched at all. Ken, did you see anything down there?
Self, you're up back. Hutton, your tailback. Quick pitch to Hutton. Trying to get the corner. Cuts it back to the inside. And Hutton may be gone to the house. Hutton on the left side. He's got one man to beat. Touchdown, MRA from the first play.
Receivers to the left. Ryan Goolsby to the right. They hand off to Ben Hutton right up the middle, and Hutton's going to break free. He's going to gain. He's going to have a lot of running room. He breaks it back to the right edge, and he's gone. He's going to outrun number 17, the kicker, Jordan, all the way to the end zone, and MRA has just scored a touchdown. MRA leads 37-28. They're up 9 with 2 minutes and 36 seconds to play. MRA's Ben Hutton with a big play. The last 2 big plays have belonged to him.
Guys, you better check Hutton's stats now because he may have hit that 1,000-yard mark.
Well, he did. He hit the 1,000-yard mark on that play, and that was about the 6th or 7th game of the season. He had a lot more games after that. Broke the all-time rushing record at the school, and as good as he was in football, he was even better in track. He had 27 races his senior year in high school, was 27-0, state champion in the 100 meters, state champion in the 200 meters, state champion in the 4x100, state champion in the 4x200, state record holder, and you get the idea. He was pretty fast. I used to, every Saturday morning, I mean, I'm just being honest, dads, you kind of nod if you understand, but Saturday morning, I'd get up at 6 a.m. I know you're supposed to sleep in on Saturday, but I would go get the newspaper on Saturday morning because his picture was in there and looking at all the articles, and I mean, I just did. I'm just being honest, I did. Well, not too many 5'8", 160-pound kids get to go play Division I football, but Ben did. Coach Larry Fedora invited Ben to play at the University of Southern Mississippi, which is where I grew up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and it's also where my wife and I met our first week of college. So it was a very exciting time for us. We were going to get to go down and watch Ben play where we met and where I grew up, and Coach Fedora was in his first year there. He's now at the University of North Carolina. But that was his first year at Southern Miss, and so we went down for our official visit. Well, the coaches were supposed to take you on tour of campus, but we had to show them the campus because they were brand new there, and Joni and I knew more about the campus than they did. Ben had just graduated high school at the end of May and started summer workouts at the beginning of June, so he went straight down to Southern so he could do conditioning and training and go ahead and get a couple of classes out of the way. 4.0 student right off the bat. Did 7-on-7 drills all summer with his quarterback, guy you may have heard of, Austin Davis with the Rams. And so just a fantastic time. And the interesting thing, though, is not a whole lot of kids from our area go to Southern Miss. About half of the students from Jackson, Mississippi go to Ole Miss, and about half go to Mississippi State. And so Ben really didn't have a lot of friends down there. And I would call him over the summer and just kind of, hey, how was practice? Well, you know, tell me what's going on. And you would think that someone whose desire had been to play Division I football his whole life would be overly excited. But it was just kind of, oh, it was fine. It was okay. It was good. And it was about it. You just never could really get more than that out of him. I remember the same week, which was right before the season started, the same week that he got his jersey, his name appeared in our hometown newspaper one more time. And I went down to the end of the driveway, except this time it was a Thursday morning, and I got the newspaper because Thursday morning is when the arrest records appear from the weekend prior. And Ben had gotten a DUI in our hometown. And dads, I want you to look right here, and I know some of you can relate to this, but I'm going to be just as honest as I possibly can. I got a call at 2 in the morning, and it was the deputy, guy I knew. And he said, hey, Steve, I'm sorry, but your boy's DUI, I'm going to have to take him in. And he said, but his truck is just 5 blocks from the house if you want to come over here and get it. The very first thought that came into my head, instantly, first thought, I wonder if he's going to get to play ball this fall. I didn't ask if he had been in a wreck. I didn't ask if he was okay. I didn't think if there was some underlying problem. My first thought, I wonder if this is going to mess up football. Coach Fedora never found out. He went on to practice in camp. The 105 players, that's your official roster, they get to go a little bit early and do camp 2-a-days before the season starts. And he was injured 12 days into camp. He tweaked his shoulder. Wasn't that bad. Coaches said, you know, you can probably play the season and have surgery during the off season. And he said, no, I want to have surgery now. And so I talked to him and said, you know, Ben, it's not, you can play. It's not. He said, no, I want to have surgery now. I want to go ahead and get that out of the way. So here's a kid that always wanted to play Division I ball, but for the first time decided to run away from a problem. He wasn't real happy, just didn't really feel like things were gelling for him down there. And so he chose to have surgery. And now he kind of found himself on the outside looking in. Instead of being a part of the team, he just kind of was on the sideline. He became very sad. And he had another guy on the team that really his only friend, a guy named Peter Wilkes. And Peter was sad too. Peter's dad had died over the summer. And so that fall, he and Ben would just get together and talk a lot about their sadness. As a matter of fact, Peter's sadness really alarmed Ben. In October, the 7th week of the season, Ben asked Peter, would you ever do anything to hurt yourself? And he said no. And the next morning, he went home to Tennessee and took his own life. A couple days after that, Ben and I are in a suit store because Ben's going to be a pallbearer at the funeral. And I just remember looking at Ben in that suit store. He's probably down to 140 pounds. Complexion is pale. His hair is long, hadn't been washed. And I just remember distinctly thinking, that's more than a friend dying. There's something else I don't know, there's just something not right. A couple of weeks after the funeral, he called me and said, Dad, I just don't really want to stay here in Hattiesburg anymore. I want to go somewhere else. I'd like to transfer. And I said, Ben, you know your mom and I love you, and we are going to support you. You can do we're going to stand by your side. You can go to any school in this country. I mean it, any school, as long as it's not Ole Miss. Well, he didn't listen very well. There's Ben with Coach Houston Nutt at the University of Mississippi. Houston did not recruit Ben because Houston had a speedback at the time named Dexter McCluster, but Dexter was graduating. And because Ben had his injury 12 days into the season and not 14 days into the season, he was allowed to transfer and play immediately. So Houston welcomed him onto the Ole Miss football team. The fastest player on the team was a guy named Corvick Neat, a cornerback out of Florida. And about 5-6 weeks into the season, that day came. Whistle blew, Hutton on the line, Neat on the line. Whistle blew, boom, they're off. And Ben smoked him. So he's quickly known as the fastest player on the Ole Miss football team. I got a call from Ben that day. He was so excited. He was telling me all about it. And then a couple of days later, I got a call from Houston Nutt, who I want to tell you is my second favorite football coach of all time. I love that man, and I just love how he loved my boy, and I appreciate him so much. But I got a call from Houston Nutt, and he said, hey, Dad, this guy is pretty good. And I would do my Houston Nutt imitation right now, but I'm going to save that for tonight. And he said, this guy's good. And he said, we got 6 plays picked out for him. He's going to do some in sweeps. He's going to take a snap in the wild rebel formation, and it's just fantastic. And then a couple of 3 days later, I got a call from my favorite football coach in America, and it was Houston Nutt's strength and conditioning coach, a guy named Don Decker. Don could be senior pastor of any church in America. Super guy. And Don called me and he said, hey, Dad, Ben's on his way to the hospital. We had a workout this morning, and he passed out. And we had to kind of revive him a little bit, and he's in an ambulance now on his way to the emergency room. Come to find out, Ben had stayed out all weekend, and Monday morning came, and he thought, maybe a friend's ADD medicine, some Vyvanse or some Adderall could help perk him up a little bit for that SEC workout he was about to face. Matter of fact, if one pill would help too, it would probably be even better. And so he took those before the workout and passed out. Got a call about 2 weeks after that from the player development coach. And he simply said, Mr. Hutton, do you know where Ben is? I said, Coach, I hope he's at practice. Said, no, we hadn't seen him in a couple days. And so I started investigating, just trying to find anything. Credit card charges. I found some suspicious charges that I couldn't quite understand, and I began to piece some things together that something was wrong, but again, you don't know what it is. As a parent, you want to see the best in your child. You're not looking for all the bad things, you're looking for all the good things. And even when you find questionable things, you still fall back on the side of explaining it away. And so we found some things and couldn't understand them. Ben quit the football team a week before spring training, the spring football game. He failed most of his classes that spring, and he came home for the summer. And if I could be honest, we didn't really want him home because he was angry now, and he was mean. He would punch holes in walls and scream, and just none of it really made any sense. And that fall, he went back to school. Well, we put a bunch of safeguards in place. You know, we made sure that he had no cash. We got a meal plan for him. He had a place to live. He had a Shell credit card so that he could only get gasoline. He couldn't, have a credit card to get other things. And after about 4 or 5 weeks, learned that he had stopped going to class again and never went and took any of his midterms. I pulled up the Shell credit card bill. He had put $600 worth of fuel on the card in 3 days. And he had been filling other people's cars up in exchange for cash. Again, there's just signs. There's red flags everywhere, but there's no smoking gun. He's never been caught with anything. And as a parent, you want to see the best in your child. You don't want to see the worst. He came home for Christmas break, and it was a horrible Christmas break. He didn't want to be there. We didn't want him there. He went back for an intercession class. It's where you take a couple of classes in a short 2-week period. And he took 2 classes, went 9 straight days, and on the 9th night before his finals, he decided to go out. And again, at 2 in the morning, he was arrested. He had marijuana in his pocket, but it wasn't his. It was somebody else's, and you understand that. He fought the police. He ran from the police. He had 4 charges pending, and we knew that college was just not an option at this time. We had to bring him home and get to the bottom of this. So we came home, and we put, again, some rules in place. Look, you're going to come home for a semester. You're going to work. You're going to go to counseling. We're going to figure this out together. We are going to put you in a good position to win, and we are going to move forward. Maybe we'll even get you a nicer car. Maybe that'll make you feel better. Maybe we'll even put you back at college and put you in a nicer apartment next time. Maybe that'll make you feel better. And if we can help make you feel better, be in a position to win, then things are going to be good. Why don't you just go to counseling? So we would set the counseling up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because we couldn't get him out of bed until 2 or 3 every afternoon. And I was on a business trip, and he sat down with his wife, with his mom, my wife, and just said, Mom, there's more to this drug stuff than you guys realize. I've told my counselor about it. He's known all along. I've been trying to stop. I don't know how. I need some help. And so we put him into a 30-day treatment program because, again, it's not a problem. He's a 19, 20-year-old college kid who just let it get out of control. Well, if we can just kind of put a stop to it for a little while, let's go do a quick little 30-day thing. There's no addiction. It's just a college kid. Maybe you can get cleaned up, and we'll put you back. We'll put you in a good position to win, and you can go back and you can start getting your life back in order again. Get that certificate. Go show the judge that you're trying really hard. Graduate that 30-day rehab. So he did. Went and showed the judge the certificate, got most of the charges dropped, got the weight of the world off of his shoulders again, was arrested 2 weeks later on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. He decided he wanted to complete what we call the Mississippi trifecta by going to a 3rd university, Mississippi State. So he went there in the fall, got him a nice apartment, got him a meal plan, tried to start all over again. He came home in October. he had to have been down to 125 pounds. His face was no longer pale. It was ashen. He was talking so fast, you couldn't understand him. I got a call at 2 a.m. again that night. He said somebody had shot at him, and he wanted to kill him, wanted me to help. I went and found him. He's wearing blue jeans, nothing else. He's screaming, he's beating on my car. I just start driving him out of town because I don't know what to do. The next day, he goes back to school, and we know that he's not going to be with us much longer. Have you guys got a dresser at your house that is full of family photos that are just scattered all in the drawers? And one of these days, you're going to get around to putting them in an album, right? Well, we've got that dresser at our house. And I came home that next day, and I found my wife sitting in the floor, and she had those drawers pulled out, sitting all around her. And she had an envelope in her lap and a black Sharpie where she had written the words "Ben's funeral" on the envelope. And she was trying to find the pictures that she wanted displayed at his funeral while she still had the presence of mind to do so. Four days later, he was in an ICU in Oxford. Organs were shutting down. We were presented with papers to sign, do not resuscitate papers, organ donation papers, things along those lines. My wife is not the most technologically savvy woman in the world. Let me just go ahead and get that out there. But I had just bought her a new iPhone. And she had just learned how to do what is the bane of every man's existence, group texting. And we had a group of friends, Sunday school class. We call it life group because we do live life together. And they've been so gracious over the last 2 to 3 years because they knew that Ben was supposed to be on the football field at Southern Miss, and he never did. And they knew he was supposed to be at Ole Miss, and he never did. And they never really asked us why. And my wife, with our son lying in that ICU, sent out the following text, and it simply said, "Pride aside, ... we need prayer." As gut-wrenching as that 2-year stretch of our life was, it paled in comparison to the next 3. He went to his second rehab after he got out of ICU, and he did really well for 8 months. Decided he wanted to go to a small college and try to play ball again. He was there for 2 to 3 weeks, and he relapsed. Went to a third rehab in New Mexico. Was there for 3 or 4 months. Moved to a sober living facility in Asheville, North Carolina. I got a 2 a.m. phone call. It was from Ben this time. And his first buddy that he ever experimented with in junior high and high school was a young man named Dalton Rader. Dalton also had spiraled into addiction and chose to cure himself that night by placing a handgun to his head. Michael was 17 years old at the time, 18. And I had arranged for Michael to do his first police ride-along with the Madison Police Department. The first call that my youngest son ever went on was to the suicide of his brother's best friend who had spent countless nights in our house. Ben came home for the funeral, and he said, "Mom, Dad, I'm good. No more. It's over. I'm fine. You don't have to worry about this anymore. I'm done." He got a great job. He started a new life. recommitted himself to the Lord and got a fantastic job for the first time ever, had rolls of hundreds in his pocket. He's a great salesman, was at a car dealership and making extremely good money. And a lot of the guys at the dealership went to the casinos after work or on weekends, and Ben thought, well, yeah, I could do that. As long as I don't drink or anything, I could go to a casino. And so he went with his friends and lost all of his money that he had earned the last 2 to 3 months. Felt like a complete failure, relapsed within a matter of hours. I got another 2 a.m. phone call after that relapse. He went to rehab number 4. Came out, they held his job for him. He went back to the Ford dealership. Have you ever heard the term insanity, being trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? He thought he could go to the casino again if he just managed it better this time. Worst thing could have happened, he won $15,000. Came home and thought, that was so easy, I think I'll go back tomorrow and get me another 15. Lost all that, maxed out his credit cards. Had a needle in his arm within 48 hours. Relapsed again. I got a call, 1:02 a.m., wasn't quite 2 this time. Went to his house. There was 11 police officers holding him down as he was fighting them. He went to jail for the 6th time that night, facing his 11th and 12th charges, except this time he was met at the door by a real good-looking 20-year-old kid who looks great in uniform. His younger brother was the one who was supposed to fingerprint him and take his picture in processing. So I'm getting near the end of this message. You're looking at your watch and you're thinking, okay, it's pretty close. It's near the end of the deal. And how's he going to put a bow on this and wrap it up and tell us about the silver lining ending? The happy ending that we all want to hear. I wonder how he's going to do that. We so badly want to put God in a box. We so badly want to pray to a Lord that we have created to bless our plans and bless our ideas. And when pain and suffering occurs in our life, we ask, why is this happening? This is not how it's supposed to be happening. You're supposed to provide this bow for the story. You're supposed to provide this silver lining. It should be this way. We invented that silver lining. God may not be done teaching Ben whatever it is that he's trying to teach him. God may not be done teaching Joni and I whatever it is that he's trying to teach us. In God's perfect timing, he'll reveal his plan. But that bow we created. We were driving to Rehab 4, Rehab 5, I can't remember what it was, and Ben wasn't saying anything. And just in his way of saying, I'm sorry, he reached over and he wanted me to fist bump him. He didn't want to say anything. That was just his way of saying, I'm sorry. I fist bumped him and we kept driving. And he said, Pops, you got to write a book. I've given you enough ammunition. You can fill volumes. And I said, Ben, I'll tell you what. I'll write that book if it has a happy ending. But then I thought about it. The happy ending is that he's alive today. He's breathing today. As long as he's alive, as long as he's breathing, there's hope. God can still do a work in his life. When pain and suffering occurs in your life, are you going to thank God for the experience? Are you going to draw closer to him? Are you going to find ways to draw closer to him? Or are you going to turn from him? Now, I know we're all good Southern Baptists, and you want a verse for this, right? I'm going to give you a couple. How about James 1:2? Consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds. How about 1 Thessalonians 5:18? In everything give thanks. This is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. How about Romans 5:3 and 4? Suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character. And character produces hope. How about Luke 22:42? In Luke 22:42, Jesus is on his way to the cross. Is he looking for a silver lining? No, he says, "Yet not my will, but yours be done." I know this story is somebody else's story in this room. Now, change the names, change the city, but it's the same story. Or maybe it's not a story of drugs and alcohol, but you have a story that is equally as painful. It may be that your spouse is no longer there. It may be that God has not provided those childs. It may be that you have lost a loved one. You have a story equally as painful of pain and suffering, and you're saying to yourself, I know intellectually I am supposed to praise God. I understand that. I know I'm supposed to draw close to Him, but I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I just don't feel like it. How am I supposed to do that? Give me something. Please help me. I had a doctor in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, email me 3 months ago. He had read the book, and he sent me an email this long, and he has a 19-year-old son that in the email he said, we're on about chapter 5 of your journey. But the problem is your book's 22 chapters long, and we don't want to live through the next 17 chapters. Please help me. What am I supposed to do? I'm going to give you 3 short things, 3 words. They start with an S, and I'm done. The first one is sermon. Now, here's what I mean by that. When your child's photograph appears in the Thursday edition of the newspaper, not the Saturday, because it's of an arrest record, the last place you want to come is to this building, but it's the first place that you need to run. You need to be here. You need to be with the people of God, and you need to hear the word of God. You want a verse for that? How about Matthew 18:20? Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, that's not the ball fields, so you're here where other people are in my name. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am with them. You want to hear what God has to say? Go to where 2 or 3 are gathered, and that's here. Number 2, small group. You want to surround yourself with a small group of people. Maybe it is your Sunday school class. Maybe it's your life group. Maybe it's Celebrate Recovery, which this church wraps their arms around and does such a fantastic job with. But you need to be with that small group, the people who will help save your life. Our life group saved our life. You want a verse for that? How about Galatians 6:2? Bear one another's burdens. It's in the book. Number 3, you want to hear a word from God, you need to be in here. You need to get in the Scripture. You think God has abandoned you? You think you're all alone? You think He doesn't love you anymore? You need to listen to His words. You need to listen to Him speak to you through this book. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that for you right now. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to picture whatever picture it is that you have of Jesus. It might be Jesus on a cross like what's on the screen. It might be a risen Savior. It might be a painting that was in your grandmother's house growing up. It might be a movie scene. Get a mental image of Jesus. Have you got that? Everybody got it? Every head bowed and every eye closed. I want you to listen to these words, His words. Listen to His words and picture Him as if He is sitting right in front of you, as if He has taken your hands and He is speaking these words directly to you. You may not know me, but I know everything about you. I know when you sit down and when you rise up. I am familiar with all your ways. Even the very hairs on your head are numbered. You were made in my image. You are my offspring. I rejoice over you with singing. I knew you even before you were conceived. I chose you when I planned creation. You are not a mistake. All your days are written in my book. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I knit you together in your mother's womb. I brought you forth on the day you were born. I love you with an everlasting love. It is my desire to lavish my love on you. You are my child, and I am your father. I am the perfect father. I am your provider, and I meet all your needs. If you seek me with all your heart, you will find me. It is I who gave you those desires. One day I will wipe every tear away from your eyes. You are my treasured possession. I am your greatest encourager. I am also the Father who comforts you in all your troubles. I will never stop doing good to you. I'll take away the pain you have suffered on this earth. I am your Father, and I love you even as I love my Son Jesus. For in Jesus, my love for you is revealed. Jesus came to demonstrate that I am for you, not against you. If you receive the gift of my Son Jesus, you receive me. Nothing will ever separate you from my love again. Come home. Come home. And I'll throw the biggest party heaven has ever seen. My question is, will you be my child? I'm waiting for you. If you'd stand in the quietness of this moment. Some of you aren't even sure really what I'm talking about. You know who Jesus is, but you've never made a step to come down here, take a pastor by the hand and say, I need to know this Jesus in a personal way. I need to feel him like that guy just told me about. For those of you, maybe it's a fourth S on that screen. Maybe it's the word saved. Maybe you need to come down, take a pastor, and meet Jesus. Invite him into your life. Let him be Lord of your life. If that's you, I want you to come now. Maybe some of you are in this room and you're hurting, you're in pain, and you need to run somewhere. Well, I want to invite you to run to this altar. There's going to be pastors down here in front. If you're experiencing some debilitating pain in your life, run down here. Tell them. Bear one another's burdens. Maybe you're a guest today or a visitor, and maybe you're thinking, you know, this is the type church that I need to be a part of. I want to come and I want to make that decision today. Regardless of what your decision is, I'd ask you to step out now and come. Come now.